The meeting of the Finance and Appropriations Committee will come to order now. Staff, can you call the roll?
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right, here's sort of the agenda that we're going to have in order. First, we're going to have staff address the identical bills that have a companion that was a Senate bill that's been passed out of here. Then we're going to deal with some of the Woodrum bills that have that type of issue. We'll deal with a couple that where we will conform to a similar Senate bill, and then we'll just take everybody the patron based upon when the patron signed up. So with that, April, can you get us started here? So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first bill, House Bill 2391. This is Delegate Austin's bill related to Public-Private Partnerships Advisory Commission and the membership. This adds the Secretary of Finance as a permanent member of that council, and the introduced budget had some language as well. The identical bill, Senate Bill 913, Senator Ruff's bill, was passed by indefinitely 11 yes, 4 no in committee, and the introduced budget has language that was removed, which is different than that.
All right. Delegate Austin.
Sir.
You're going to.
Good afternoon, but
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, how are you today?
I'm fine.
Good to see you. Yes, sir. I have a bill. I think Senator Ruff had a bill sort of like my bill also.
His bill was like yours.
HB 2391.
Yeah.
Public-private partnership, and adds the Secretary of Finance as a permanent member to the P3 committee.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron? All right. We have a motion to report.
Substitute motion,
All right.
PBI.
All right. We have a substitute motion to pass by indefinitely. Is there a second? Second. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. We will vote on the board now. The motion is to pass by indefinitely.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
All right, the motion to pass by indefinitely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
The next bill is House Bill 1805. This is Delegate Bloxon's bill. It relates to the Virginia Resources Authority, and it adds community development projects related to the production and preservation of housing, including that for low and moderate income persons and families. It's here because of the obligation, moral obligation of the debt of the Commonwealth. However, there's an identical bill, Senate Bill 1401, Senator Lewis's bill, which passed the Senate 39 yes, 0 no.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in light of that, I'd move to report this bill.
All right. I got a motion and a second to report the bill. There's no further discussion. We'll vote now.
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the next bill, House Bill 1629, is Delegate Coiner's bill. However, I believe you may want to pass this one by temporarily since Senator McClellan is not here, because I believe there was a discussion on a substitute.
All right. Why don't you skip that one for now, and then we can come back to that.
The next bill, House Bill 1664, Delegate Hodge. It's the Blue Catfish Processing, Flash Freezing, and Infrastructure Grant Program. It's created, it establishes a grant program. It's identical to Senate Bill 897, Senator Stewart's bill, which passed the Senate 38 yes, 0 no, and both the Senate and the House budgets included $2 million in the second year of the biennium.
Mr. Chair, move to report the bill.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to report the bill. Actually, we have two motions and a second to report the bill. But it must be popular somewhere. But anyway, we'll vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
All right, the bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, the next bill, House Bill 1840, is Delegate Knight's bill. It relates to establishing the Eastern Virginia Health Science Center at Old Dominion University. It is currently identical to Senate Bill 1211, Senator Lucas's bill, which passes Senate 39 yes, 0 no, and both bodies did different actions in the budget related to funding.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move to report the bill.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Unless there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, the next bill is House Bill 1843, also Delegate Knight. This relates to the 6-year capital outlay plan for the governor related to projects. It's identical to Senate Bill 1068, Senator Howe's bill, which passes Senate 38 yes, 0 no, and it's just a plan.
Mr. Chair, I move we report the bill.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to report and a second to that motion. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
All right, the bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, the next bill, House Bill 1660, is Delegate Wilt's bill. It relates to the Dairy Producer Margin Coverage Premium Assistance Program and Fund and the creation of a fund, which is why it's here. It is identical to Senate Bill 1239, Senator Obenshain's bill, which passes Senate 40 yes, 0 no.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, moving next to the supplement from general laws and technology bills, the referrals from there, it is on the yellow paper. The first of the identical bills is House Bill 1912. This is Delegate Batten's bill. It relates to the powers and duties of the Treasury Board, and it was some additional language was added in committee. It is now identical to Senate Bill 1094, Senator Norman's bill, which
Move to
passed the
report.
Senate 40 yes, 0 no.
All right, we have a motion and a second. A motion to report and a second. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, the next bill, House Bill 2332, Delegate Campbell's bill, relates to the sites for site development and grants at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership Authority. It reduces from 100 acres to 50 acres, the minimum number of continuous acres required from a grant. It is identical to Senate Bill 1308, Senator Deed's bill, which passes Senate 37 yes,
Move bill
1
be
no.
reported.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, the next bill, House Bill 2450, Delegate Campbell's bill, relates to design, build, or construction management contracts under the Virginia Public Procurement Act, and it relates to the percentage of work allowed by the construction manager. It is now identical to Senate Bill 1491, Senator Bell's bill, which passes Senate 40 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, the next bill, House Bill 2046, Delegate Carr's bill, relates to the powers and duties of the Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development. It is identical to Senate Bill 839, Senator Locke's bill, which passed the Senate 40 yes, 0 no, in both the House and the Senate budget provided funding, just
Move to
slightly
report.
different amounts.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If anyone is, we can vote now.
I-16, no, zero.
The bill is reported.
The next bill, House Bill 1827, Delegate Cherry's bill, has to do with decedents in the custody of the Department of Corrections and autopsies. It is now identical to Senate Bill 1276, Senator Donovan's bill, which passed the Senate 40 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to report. All in favor, vote aye now.
I-16, no, 0.
The bill is reported.
The next bill, House Bill 1987, relates to temporary permits being authorized under charitable gaming related to organizations that sell Insta Bingo, Network Bingo, Pool Tab, Seal cards for up to 7 days during a convention or conference. It's identical to Senate Bill 1209, Senator Reeves' bill, which passed the Senate 35 yes, 1 no, 3 abstentions.
Move to report.
All right.
Second.
Motion, now we have a second too. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
Ayes 15, no, 0, 1 abstention.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, turning now to the packet on the pink paper referrals from this morning from Education and Health. The first of those bills is House Bill 2272, Delegate Cherry's bill relating to tuition charges for certain students in higher education, specifically Norfolk State, Virginia State, et cetera. It's identical to Senate Bill 1448, Senator Lucas's bill, which passed the Senate 39 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
I-16, no, 0.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, the next bill, House Bill 2345, Delegate Head's bill, has to do with renaming the Emergency Department Care Coordination Program as the Smart Chart Network Program. There is some funding in the Senate budget, but it is identical to Senate Bill 1255, Senator Donovan's bill, which passed the Senate 39 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to report. If no further discussion, we can vote now.
I-16, no, 0.
The bill is reported.
The next bill, House Bill 1963, Delegate Runyon's bill, relates to financial flexibility with individuals with developmental disabilities, directing the Department of Medical Assistance Services to combine the maximum allowable amount under Medicaid for assistive technologies related to electronic home-based services. It's identical to Senate Bill 945, Senator Suderland's bill, which passed the Senate 40 yes, 0 no, and both the House and Senate budgets include funding for the bill.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
I-16, no, 0.
The bill is reported.
Mr. Chair, I believe that brings us to the public safety bills that Katie was going to cover related to woodrooms.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I understand that in the first block, you skipped House Bill 1692, which is identical to my bill. Could we go back to that one?
1629.
Sorry, yes, 1629.
Yeah.
1629 was identical to Senate Bill 1329. When Senate Bill 1329 left here, it left with a substitute because there was concern over a potential fiscal impact. However, that bill did have an enactment clause that said that the portions of the bill that would create the student data portal would not take effect unless it was reenacted. So the only potential fiscal impact is the creation of the working group itself, which the Department of Education has said that they could absorb. So with that, I would ask that we report the bill as it is, and that is how the Senate bill has been put back.
All right. What is the motion?
Mr.
To
Chair.
pass the bill? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Senator McClellan, are you suggesting that there isn't a reenactment clause on part of the bill?
There is a reenactment clause. So if you look at line 490, There is a reenactment clause that the first part of the bill, which is the creation of the data portal as suggested by the working group, would not take effect unless reenacted.
Right. All right, everybody understand? All right, we have a motion from Senator.
Do we need a substitute? Is there, my understanding was there was a committee substitute.
Which reject.
Mr. Chairman, we do need a substitute. As it left the previous Senate committee, it was changed to the Senate version
Okay.
in the Section 1 bill, so we do need a substitute to get it back in the proper form.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I didn't realize that.
All right, there's a motion to adopt the substitute. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay, we're adopting the substitute. Any
Now there's a
questions on
motion to
that?
report, second.
The original bill. The original bill,
All right, is there a motion?
yeah.
Bill be reported as
Second.
All right, with a motion and a second to report with the substitute. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, we'll vote aye.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported with the substitute.
Mr. Chairman, if you turn to the back of your green packet, there's a list of Woodrum bills that were referred from the Judiciary Committee. These are all identical to bills that passed the Senate, and the House and Senate budget include the funding for the Woodrum impact. So we'll go through those. The first bill is House Bill 1478, patroned by Delegate Ballard. This relates to gang-related crimes and associated penalties. This is identical to a bill patroned by Senator McDougal that passed the Senate 36 yes, 4 no.
Which one is this?
Uh,
Oh, it's that one. All right, this is House Bill 1478 from Delegate Ballard. And it is what Katie described, and it's identical to Senate Bill 1207 from Senator McDougal.
Some people might want to vote against some of them.
Okay. Well, all right, the bill is before us. Is there a motion?
Move to,
All right, we have a motion and a second to report. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 14, noes 2.
The bill is reported.
The next bill is House Bill 1673, patroned by Delegate Bell. This relates to strangulation-related penalties. It's identical to a bill patroned by Senator Boysko that passed the Senate 39 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
All right.
I don't think we have the calls on the voice.
There's a motion
We
and a
funded
second,
it.
and on the question from Senator Peterson, we already have the money in both budgets for these items, so. So it was 39-0 on Senator Boysko's bill. So is there a motion on the bill?
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported.
The next bill is House Bill 1897, patroned by Delegate Bell. This relates to protective orders and continuance hearings of protective orders. It's identical to a bill patroned by Senator Deeds that passed the Senate 39 yes, 1 no.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported.
The next bill is House Bill 1931, patroned by Delegate Durant. It relates to sexually violent predators and tampering with GPS devices. It's identical to a bill patroned by Senator Peake that passed the Senate 39 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported.
Next bill is House Bill 2208, patroned by Delegate Kilgore. This is identical to a bill patroned by Senator Reeves. They incorporate ethnicity into the current statutory penalties for crimes-related discrimination and hate crimes. And Senator Reeves' bill passed the Senate 39 yes, 0 no.
All right.
I move we conform to the Reeves bill.
It came over from judiciary conformed.
Oh, never mind. I'll move to pass it then.
All right, there's a motion and a second to report the bill. There's no further discussion. We'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported.
The next bill is House Bill 2024, patroned by Delegate Leftwich. It relates to retired judges and magistrates and sharing of personal information. It's identical to a bill patroned by Senator Deeds that passed the Senate 39 yes, 1 no.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report. If there's no further discussion, vote now.
Ayes 15, noes 1.
The bill is reported.
The next bill is House Bill 1572, patroned by Delegate Walker. It relates to false emergency communications, and it's identical to a bill patroned by Senator Deeds that passed the Senate 40 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported.
The next bill is House Bill 2166, patroned by Delegate Williams. This is identical to a bill patroned by Senator McDougal that passed the Senate 26 yes, 14 no. It relates to racketeering offenses. It includes petty larceny in the list of offenses that can be considered racketeering, and also expands other racketeering-related penalties. And again, passed the Senate 26 yes, 14 no.
All right, is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 9, noes 7.
All right, that bill is reported.
The next bill is House Bill 2372, patroned by Delegate Wyatt, relates to the purchase and sale of catalytic converters. It's identical to a bill patroned by Senator McDougal that passed the Senate 39 yes, 0 no.
Move to report.
All right, there's a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, vote now.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
The bill is reported.
The final identical bill on the referrals from judiciary is House Bill 1682, patroned by Delegate Wyatt. It deals with manufacturing and distribution of fentanyl. It's identical to Senate Bill 1188, patroned by Senator Reeves, which passed the Senate 38 yes, 2 no.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 15, noes 1.
The bill is reported.
That concludes my report.
We can do that now, yeah.
Mr. Chair, as requested, this is Delegate Knight's remaining bill, House Bill 1841. It's related to the Revenue Stabilization Fund and Revenue Reserve Fund. It's similar in nature to Senate Bill 1525, Senator Barker's bill, which passed the Senate 40 yes, 0 no. There are some differences about which fund and eliminating the super deposit. The recommendation of the co-chairs was to conform it with Senate Bill 1521.
I so move.
All right, there's a motion and a second to conform to Senate Bill 1521. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
Move to report as amended.
All right. All right, we have a motion to report as amended and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
That bill is reported with a substitute. Yeah. Delegate Cherry. We want to hold you here long enough that you don't get to practice your three-pointers, so.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to come and present this evening. House Bill 1699 is where I'll turn your attention to.
All right.
I believe there's an amendment to this as well. We had agreed to one in concept.
All right.
Yes.
1699. April, do you know which page we're on?
Mr. Chair, do we have a substitute from the Judiciary Committee or?
The substitute was adopted in Judiciary, Senator.
Okay,
Yes.
and
Okay.
we adopted it in concept. I guess it's online now is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, what the bill does is it makes it a Class 5 felony to solicit for the purchase of a minor child. Currently, that is not a crime here in Virginia, and we think it should be. And so we filed our Woodrum Amendment with the House, and I believe it's in our budget, so would love to have your support here in the Senate as well.
All right. You've heard the presentation from the patron. Does anybody have any questions of the patron?
Yeah, I got some questions.
Yes, Senator Peterson.
Well, people have children through surrogates.
Yes, sir.
How would that not be a violation of the statute?
There's an exemption in there for that in subsection at the end.
Okay.
That was specifically addressed because we did want to avoid that. And then the substitute made sure that family members were not included as well. And so that was the recommendation from your committee as well, sir.
Further question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And I apologize, did this come through Judiciary?
Mr. Chair, the
Yes.
amendments we adopted, the substitute was basically done in concept last night.
Okay, I wasn't there.
You weren't there?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, I apologize. Well, it's online. I'm trying to looking at it right now.
Okay.
All right. Is there any staff, does staff have any explanation of the substitute that was adopted within the Judiciary Committee?
Mr. Chair, Stephen can jump in and correct me, but I believe the substitute in judiciary provided an exception for individuals with a legitimate interest in the child.
Okay. All right. The bill is before us.
One more question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Senator Peterson.
I don't know, maybe, I'm just intrigued by this, and maybe it's almost biblical in character. Is there an incident? I mean, what?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
could
what
you
happened
describe
was
that,
one of our
please?
detectives in Colonial Heights was working a case. He had, working online, he had someone that had volunteered to purchase what they thought was a 14-year-old child. Because they never said they were going to do bad sexual things to the child, it's not a crime. And so the perpetrator knew that as long as they didn't say those words of what they were going to do to the child if they got it, there is no crime in Virginia to solicit the purchase or to buy or sell a minor child in Virginia right now.
Further
So we're
question?
closing a loophole.
Further question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, I mean, under the 13th Amendment, there is no involuntary servitude, so I don't understand this concept of buying or selling a human being.
When he went to his Commonwealth attorney and said, this is what he said and this is what he's done, what crime can I charge him with for attempting to purchase this child? And they said that's not a crime in Virginia currently, so we're closing a loophole.
So, Mr. Chair,
But my question is,
Yes,
if I
Senator
might,
Peterson.
since you can't own a person, people aren't owned anymore. under
Correct.
13 If you can't own something, how can you buy or sell it?
But in expert testimony, what we found is pimps will do this. They will buy, sell, and trade one another, which again is the purchase is a crime, the solicitation of which is not. So we're
Okay.
trying to close that loophole.
I think there's an existential difference between us, but I'll defer to the next speaker.
Now, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Deeds.
One issue we thought about yesterday in judiciary is what happens if one parent agrees to pay expenses in exchange for the other parent giving up the right to custody?
Which was why we put the amendment in there for
So we
that.
put the language on line 21 of the bill exempts a person with a legitimate interest as defined in 124.1 in such manner. So we tried to address that situation.
Right.
I mean, it's somewhat of a novel problem, one that we've not really thought about. But that's what we did.
All right, are there any other questions of the patron? No. It's open for a motion. All right, we have a motion and a second to report, and the amendments got adopted yesterday, so we don't have to deal with those today. So, all right, if there's no further discussion, we will vote on the board now.
Ayes 15, no 0, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. The bill's reported. Okay, Delegate Coiner.
Your name gets called, you feel like you won the lottery in here.
All right.
Hello again, Mr. Chair. I have House Bill 1628. This did come through committee already. I'll briefly describe it. Today, we do have a shortage of mitigation banks and credits. They're not always available. So the Federal Clean Water Act allows developers, state and local governments to mitigate their impacts by providing an in lieu fee program. This is not new to Virginia. The General Assembly actually passed legislation for this in 2013, but due to financial circumstances at that time, did not fund it getting started. But it was passed in 2013 due to losing several economic development projects because they didn't have credits available. So today, we are looking at putting in place and getting those approvals from the Army Corps to operate the fund. So that's what the bill does.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator
In
Dees.
light of the fact that there's funding for this in the House budget, but certainly not the Senate, I'd move that we put the financial contingency clause on the bill.
All right, there's a motion and a second to put the financial contingency clause on the bill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
I'd move to report the bill.
All right, as amended.
As amended.
And there is a second. So if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The
Thank
bill
you,
is
Mr.
reported
Chair.
with the amendment, so
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, next up is Delegate O'Quinn. All right, going once, going, Delegate Avoli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is House Bill 1820. Unfortunately, it has no fiscal impact. It came through all of the House and the Senate unanimously, and if you look at line 37 and 38, number 10, I believe staff can clarify the issue here.
Okay. All right, is there any questions of the patron?
I'd move to report the bill.
All right, we have a motion to report the bill. Is there a second? All right, if there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Committee member.
All right, next we have Delegate Head. Delegate Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Certainly.
House Bill 2500 has a substitute that makes it identical to Senate Bill 1313 that will be heard tomorrow in third reading. This bill came from General Laws. It's a work group, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not really sure why I'm in Finance and Appropriations, but I'll leave that to you guys. I'll be glad to describe this bill to you.
Sure, just give us a cursory overview.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, I think this bill's identical to Senator Bell's 1313. Has that substitute already been made identical?
Yes, sir. It was done in General Laws.
I'd move to report the bill.
All right, we got a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next is Delegate Bell.
Chair, good evening. I apologize, my foot was asleep, trying to not lean when I'm at the podium. This is House Bill 2398.
All right.
This does not have there is not a Senate bill, although it was substantially rewritten when it was in Senate Judiciary, and it attempts to address the issue of when a person has sex against their wishes, against their will, but it's not by force, threat, or intimidation, which is the current language. And so we initially placed it there to make it a form of rape, forcible sodomy, or object penetration. And we thought some more, and with the help of judiciary staff, they thought it was more properly placed as a form of extortion. It's not currently covered. Extortion means money, so you can extort money from someone, but if you, as in this case, threaten to show pictures in a state of undress, and in this case, woman, but in this case, she then had started, at least initially, sexual relations and against her will, there was no good place to charge it. It ended up being a misdemeanor. And so this would attempt to address that. That's the bill.
All right, are there any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Eben.
how does this fit in with the revenge porn statute that we passed a few years ago? Is this extended or is this different?
No, we use that as our basis. And so if you read it, you'll see the same language. Revenge porn is a picture of anyone. This would simply be of the complainant or a family member. And revenge porn is just the actual revenge porn. That's a misdemeanor. This would say if you commit the acts of revenge porn and use it to threaten to force someone to either have intercourse or you try to use it in that way, it would make it this extortion. Several states have tried versions of this. This would be a more serious offense. So if I simply show images of someone, if a person shows images of someone, it would be a misdemeanor. But if they do it to threaten and extort them to commit one of the sexual acts that are listed, it would then be the higher level of
Thanks for the
offense.
explanation, and I would move that we report.
Well, hold on a
When we
second.
get to it. When it's
Senator
appropriate.
Peterson.
So let me get this straight. If you say to somebody, I have a picture of you nude, and then basically use that to bargain with them to have sex, that's the same as raping them. Is that
Well, that was our
effectively-
original bill. That's not what this would do. As it came from judiciary, they changed it to the extortion statute with penalties similar to extorting someone for money. So if you do what you just said and said, if you don't give me $1,000, I will show your pictures. That might not, but that might be a form of extortion. It's not extortion to extort a sexual act from someone. This would make it a form of extortion, not a form of rape.
So this is no longer 18.2-61?
No, sir. You all changed that
All right.
yesterday, or whenever it was that you did it, yesterday afternoon. It's a new code section, but it's an extortion section, 18.259.1.
And forgive me just a second, this is, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is another bill that we adopted conceptual amendments to that resulted in a substitute. I want to be able to show it to Senator Peterson because I'm not sure he was in the room at the time.
I have a copy, but it's my only copy. I mean, I can give it to you.
Yeah, Stephen, you want to?
Can you show it down here too? Got an extra copy?
That's Ravel.
Can somebody bring a copy down here? Because
It
it's
should be
done
online.
conceptually only.
It was adopted.
Can somebody send me a copy of the, can somebody send me a copy of the bill because it was done conceptually only?
You have it.
All right, are there any further questions of the patron?
There was, Mr. Chair, there were a couple additional ideas that arose after the meeting last night. And Senator is not here, suggested another substitute that would require the threat to be in writing and remove the sexual registry requirement from the bill. That would be another substitute. Senator Peterson, have you seen that?
Mr. Chairman, you might remember that was, I don't know that that was talked about. It wasn't included in the one that was sent up, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be added here or at a later time.
I think there is another substitute, and staff has that. And for the sake of getting this in conference so we can talk about it, I'd move all of that to the.
If it's the chairman's expectation for it to go to conference and you tell me to do that, I will make that commitment. I mean, it's.
If we can, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
We can continue to talk about it.
Yes, sir.
We're taking out we're requiring that the threat be in writing, and we are taking out the sex offender registry requirement for this offense.
Okay.
Okay, and then the rest of the bill.
It's a Class 5 felony still.
The Class 5 felony will remain.
And to the senator's notice, the 1 to 20 would be, it would increase it to the same level as aggravated sexual battery 1 to 20 if it were a minor and an adult. The complainant was a minor and the offender was an adult. I don't want to leave that out, just so you see it.
All right, Chair of the committee, I don't know about that.
All right, is there further questions?
Senator Peterson, you can go on the conference report.
Great.
Okay, you can be on the conference committee.
Thanks.
You and Servell, you can fight it out.
Doesn't matter.
All right, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we amend the bill with those suggestions.
It would be a new substitute, Mr. Chairman.
So Finance Committee substitute, yes.
Okay, so this would be a Finance Committee substitute?
I'd move that substitute.
All right, is there a second to that? All right, we have a motion and a second to come up with a Finance Committee substitute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? All right.
And move that we report the bill as a substitute.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill with the substitute. If there are no further discussion, we'll vote now.
I want to see the damn thing. I'm not going to vote for anything I haven't seen. We do that.
Oh, I didn't vote. I didn't.
Ayes 14, noes 2.
All right, the bill is reported with the substitute.
Thank you, thank the committee. Thank you.
Certainly. All right, next up is Delegate Weber. All right. Okay, there he is.
Talk about timing.
Okay. Proceed. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Certainly, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. HB 1858 has become known as the Greenway Bill, and I'm sure you had extensive testimony earlier this session. When I got involved with this last year, working with Delegate Reed from Loudoun County, part of the reason I agreed to carry it this year is because we worked on it on our side, and unfortunately last year we were not successful in the House, and so this year we were a little bit more successful with a little bigger vote. As you know, it sets up moves the Greenway from the HCA to the PPTA, also dealing with or working with Senator Bell on a couple of other things too. We are prepared to put a reenactment clause on the piece of legislation so that it will come back to this body if we can continue to move the conversation forward.
All right, are there any questions of the patron?
Delegate Weaver.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair. Delegate Weaver, if we put a reenactment clause on this bill, you're not going to try to send it to conference, are you?
I'd like to send it to conference so that we can keep the conversation going. And if we can't reach an agreement, then depending on obviously your side with the conferees and our side with the conferees, the bill would not probably come out of conference if we can't reach an agreement. Working with Senator Bell, there's other aspects of that. So really there's two aspects of the bill in regards to the percentages or some of the whatever's in the public interest is the language that we're really trying to get to. And so the reenactment clause is an avenue so that we can put the bill into conference.
All right, is there any?
I move the reenactment clause. Second.
Substitute motion. Substitute motion.
Yeah.
That we pass it back up. Second. Pass by indefinitely.
All right, we have a motion and a second to pass by indefinitely. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 10, no 6.
Ayes 10, no 6.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you for waiting for me to get up here. I appreciate it.
That's quite
Y'all have
all
a good day.
Yeah. All right. Next is Delegate Orrock.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. 1452, please. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this was heard in judiciary in the long and the short. Within the existing manpower within the AG's office and their Medicaid fraud investigation unit, it will authorize the Attorney General to appoint up to 30 of those existing individuals to go through the training and become full-fledged LEOs to assist them in their enforcement duties. 41 other states have this in their Medicaid fraud investigation units. Right now, in order for them to secure or execute a search warrant, they have to rely on local or state LEOs to do so. That's the long and the short of it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, there was a posting error in the prior committee. It used the wrong version of the bill, so I would propose a substitute that would correct those mistakes, take out the valors provision and add in the judiciary amendment regarding search warrants executed at places of
And that's how the measure came out of the House. That was taken out, so they just remain under the existing retirement system.
Okay. So that, the existing retirement system would do what?
Just VRS, not valors.
Okay, all right. All right, any further questions of the patron? All right. We're open. Okay, we have a motion to report as amended. All right. Substitute motion? Okay, it's pass the bill by indefinitely. All right, there's a motion and a second on the, to pass it by indefinitely. If there's no further discussion, we'll go vote on the board now.
Ayes 9, no 7.
Ayes 9, no 7. The bill is passed by indefinitely. Yeah. All right, next up is Delegate Taylor.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. Members of the committee. I'm here to present HB 1373. Petersburg has suffered from significant economic decline over the past 40 years. The city once flourished with manufacturing employers such as Brown and Williamson, who offered good-paying jobs for residents. I want to bring attention to the fact that the current yearly salary in Petersburg is just over $26,000, while the mean yearly salary at Cordish is $60,000. This opportunity is transformative for the city. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope you will vote to help Petersburg flourish once again.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right. All right. Senator Saslaw.
The First Amendment, can you all hear me? First Amendment, it's on, well, it's on the, I guess it's a subject line 119. What it does is it, without mentioning the city, Petersburg, it spells out all the guidelines, which would be only Petersburg. If you name the city, you need 2/3 vote on the floor. So this gets around that. It would only require a majority vote if it gets there. The other is there's a requirement that I put in here that the successful bidder has to put in the contract that they'll pay the prevailing wage. It's not a project labor agreement, it's just the prevailing wage, which usually is listed by the Bureau of Labor Statistics for that area, and I'd move their acceptance.
Second.
All right. Is this one amendment?
Well, there's two different ones.
Two different ones, okay.
The first one lays out what
All right.
is really only fits Petersburg.
Right.
And the second is
Right.
the one that they pay the prevailing,
Right.
not project labor.
All right, we'll do the first amendment now, and then do the second one after that. So we have a motion and a second on the First Amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? No. All right. And then we will add the second amendment, or potentially add the second amendment, which
Just says
does
they'll pay the
prevailing wage. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no?
No.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion, any further questions of the patron? All right, we have a motion and a second to report. The substitute, with the substitutes, so the two substitutes. And the substitute and the two
Amendments to the
amendments
substitutes.
Right. All right. We will, if there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator?
To substitute.
Senator Lucas.
Right.
What'd you say, Adam?
Yeah. The substitute with the two amendments that we just did.
You speaking or you just? No, when we started down this path, we all agreed that we would be more methodical about the way we go about establishing casinos in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And for that reason, I just, substitute motion. PBI.
All right, there's a substitute motion to pass by indefinitely, and a second to that motion. Is there any further discussion? If not, then we will vote on the board.
Ayes 10, noes 6.
All right, the motion to pass by indefinitely passes, so
Thank you. I understand the process, and I appreciate your time and consideration.
certainly. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. All right, next we have, going back to this, to the top of the list, with Delegate O'Quinn.
Mr. Chairman, I have three, so I don't know if you want to do one or all of them, or...
You're here standing, so you get to do all three, so.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just, well, if I take them in numerical order, then House Bill 1779.
Page 3.
1779.
All right, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1779 creates a grant fund to be overseen by SHIV to make awards to higher ed institutions that offer programs that lead to a degree or credential that supports the nuclear power industry, including nuclear engineering and nuclear welding, of which I understand we have a pretty hefty shortage of here in Virginia, and is certainly something that Newport News Shipbuilding, among others, would be interested in. This clears the way for our higher ed institutions to begin the process of developing these programs, and think that this would be helpful in beginning to lay the groundwork now for some of these advanced technologies.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator Peterson.
I was first be willing to see if he'd be willing to, if I might ask a question.
Yes.
The gentleman be willing to make a friendly amendment to add the word family between nuclear and education.
Mr. Chairman, it's committee prerogative.
Further question, more serious. I'd ask the gentleman Are we allocating any money for this, or are we just setting up a fund?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that at this moment, we are setting up the fund. It would, I think, go ahead and signal to our higher education institutions that they need to get ready and begin getting this programming together for credentials and certifications.
It's quiet over here. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Deeds.
I take it that means that there's no funding for this in the House budget.
Mr. Chairman, I honestly can't recall the answer to that.
Actually,
I'm a little.
Does not include funding.
I don't think this one does. I'm getting confused with one that Senator Vogel and I have, which I think has 10 million in the House budget.
Yeah.
And to be fair,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we actually asked for money
Right.
because that wasn't exactly the point at this juncture.
Right. All right. Is there further discussion? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Move to report.
Okay, a motion and a second to report. All right. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 4.
Ayes 12, noes 4. That bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second one I have in numeric order, House Bill 1781.
Mr. Chair, I move we conform this bill to Senator Hackworth's 1116. Delegate Quinn, you don't have any problem with that, do you?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. I think that was the actual intent.
So,
All right. Yeah. All right, anything further do you want to talk about on this bill?
Mr. Chairman, I think you all have, I think Senate Ag heard this bill, and then I think you all heard it in here as well, I believe. And so both of these are working their way through the process. I think Senator Hackworth's bill was in Senate Ag. And so I think we may end up having to go to conference based on that, but that's.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think the Senate budget funded Senator Hackworth's bill, and I'd make a motion to report that, make a motion to report this bill as amended.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just mentioning though, although our budget included funding, the House budget did not. It's yet another example of that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Chris Nolan, McGuire Woods, on behalf of CNX Resources, working with Delegate Aquin and Senator Hackworth. I'll just point out that the bill that came out of Senate Ag stripped out the evaluation piece, and that substitute is consistent with the Senator Hackworth's bill, for which the Senate adopted House amendments yesterday or 2 days ago. So by conforming it, you have to go to conference in order to get back to where we are right here. So if you just pass the bill as it came from Senate Ag,
right,
you wouldn't have to go to conference. It reflects the amendments that the Senate put on Senator Hackworth's bill, takes out the evaluation piece, takes out the words nuclear, and changes the definition of coal mine methane so that it's consistent across two other bills. So.
Senator Peterson.
Chris is exactly correct. We need to stick with the Senate Ag version of this, and I think that will actually enable this to be consistent with what we did. So I would make that motion that we either keep or, I guess, retain the Senate Ag substitute.
Having voted on the prevailing side by which we conform the bill, then I'd make a motion we reconsider that vote.
Second.
All right. Is there a second to that motion to
Second.
reconsider? All right. We will vote on, okay, so you can just do a voice, okay, we can just do a voice vote on that. since the underlying motion was that. So, all right, all in favor of reconsideration of adopting the substitute that conformed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? All right, that's before us.
Now the bill's back before us, I would move that we report the version as it came out of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee.
All right, we have a motion and a second to have it be reported with what was adopted through the Ag and Conservation. So is there, and we have a second to that. If there's no further discussion, we can vote on the board.
Ayes 16, no 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. That is reported. You got one more.
Mr. Chairman, I think the final bill I have is House Bill 2451.
Right.
Which I think was in Senate General Laws yesterday afternoon.
Right. I got that. Yeah, present the bill.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2451 is a bill that requires the Department of Fire Programs to develop a training program on the risk of fires in electric vehicles and how to safely and effectively manage those fires. It is to be completed by all firefighters in Virginia by December 1, 2025. Fire programs who may be here but testified yesterday in General Laws that there would be in-person and online options available. There is money in the House budget. I think there were 3 different approaches in the fiscal impact statement that vary greatly in range, but there is funding in the House budget for this, and I think that there are ways to get to where it can be a minimal cost.
Yeah, it's, and the House budget does include $125,000 on this, so.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
Move to report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? All right, we will vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Members
you.
of the committee.
All right, Delegate Head.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We have House Bill 1726.
All right.
Which is
okay.
Was the companion bill to Senate Bill 1019. And as it is before you now, it is in the same posture that Senate Bill 1019 is coming through the House. And actually, I believe just passed today.
Mr. Chair, is that the same posture that 1019 was when it left the Senate, or?
No, sir, it is not. But we've worked with Senator Edwards and with stakeholders on this as it came through, and we have everything now lined up in the same. I think we've removed all the concern that we had, which was the only one that we had was prior to this was from the community colleges, and with the amendments that we added this morning that address that, and those same amendments have been added to the senator's bill. And for those of you that were also on general laws or in the education committee this morning, you heard his concurrence with this positioning as well for this bill and for his bill.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Edwards.
I think they're identical right now, right?
They are.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair, I wonder what the differences are between this and the bill that left the Senate.
Well, Mr. Chair, the bill as it left the Senate, because this committee, you converted it to a Section 1 bill when it left the Senate, and it in essence gutted it to the point that it didn't accomplish anything. We're now back to a posture where it actually sets up the ability for nonprofit to be able to offer the high school diplomas and move the workforce development along, which is what this is doing is setting up the ability for a nonprofit to be able to set up to provide a high school diploma to adults and creates a high school for them to be able to do that. This is done initially to start a pilot program, which Goodwill has started in Roanoke in the Melrose area with what they call the Excel Center. This is a community center that's offering in a very low-income area. It's offering workforce training. It's also offering financial training, grocery store, a gym, a fitness center. And then the addition of this allows people who have not finished high school to, rather than getting a GED, to come back in and actually complete high school with counselors that would meet them where they are to know how much they had completed, work through things in the evening and on weekends and times that would satisfy their job requirements, provide childcare for them. But in order to do that and have it to be an approved diploma rather than just a GED, we needed to establish this capability for them to be able to offer that diploma. And so that's what this is.
Yeah,
that's what
Mr.
this
Chairman,
is for.
and furthermore, there's a dual enrollment program with the community college, and they're very supportive as well.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator Deeds.
I'd ask what sort of fiscal impact the bill would have then.
There never has been a fiscal
None.
impact. And I mean, candidly, we've all been a little curious as to why either of the bills needed to come before the Finance Committee, but there has never been a fiscal impact for this legislation.
All right. All right. Mr. Chair, is a program with Goodwill Industries. They're putting up the money, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear from staff on the fiscal side of things.
There's no fiscal impact that I'm aware of.
Staff?
Senator Barker, Senator Deeds, I think there was concern when the bill was originally introduced, creating them as a local education agency, which it doesn't do anymore. And that was the reason the Senate bill, as it left the Senate, was to have a work group with SHEV and DOE to study this model because we were unclear about the fiscal impacts.
Move the bill be reported.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Is there any further discussion on the issue?
Mr. Chair, I mean, I'm a little concerned about the potential for fiscal impact. I'd make a substitute motion that we conform it to Senate Bill 1019 as it passed the Senate.
All right, we have a substitute motion to conform it to 1019 as it left the Senate. Is there a second to that motion?
I have a question. Chris, is that?
Well, I mean, that will, I mean, the committee is obviously, it is at your discretion to do what you're going to do. That will ensure that we go into conference if it then moves forward with that, because the bill as it left the Senate accomplishes nothing. And that's, I mean, just candidly, it slows the train down, and we've got a center that is open, and they really want to be able to begin to start offering this. This is a program that Goodwill has offered in other states.
Yeah.
We have an area that is desperately in need of helping people along, and again, the question, because, and I understand the concerns when we had initially, as it was drafted, it set it up as an LOE, but that has been removed, and to try to address all of those concerns.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we had an amendment this morning on his bill, and my bill, I think, would be the same thing. So it's ready to go now. It's no fiscal impact. And it's just like, because the community college system likes the way it's done.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator Deeds.
I'll withdraw my motion and make another motion that we amend the bill to say that it's not eligible for state funding. A conceptual motion. I'm not sure exactly how that would read.
All right, Stephen,
Because that would definitely remove the fiscal impact.
I don't think, Mr. Chairman, whether it's eligible or not is beside the point. I mean, there's no fiscal impact.
Well, if we say that.
Yes. All right. We're not back and forth here. Senator Deeds.
That was my motion.
Has a motion that would not be eligible for state funding. Is there a second to that motion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no?
No.
All right, the chair is in doubt.
Can't
We'll
you know?
vote on the board, so.
Why is he creating a mess?
The motion was,
The motion was that we have a explicit statement that the program's not eligible for state funding. That way we assure there's no fiscal impact.
right. All right, we will vote on the board on this because I was in doubt as to which side prevailed, so.
Couldn't have missed unnecessarily. Thank Jesus Christ.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Ayes 9, no 6, that amendment is adopted.
I move to report the bill as amended.
Second.
All right, motion is to report the bill as amended. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
All right, aye 16, no 0.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, next is Delegate Delaney.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I've got HB 2129.
Right. All right.
So the bill before you relaxes the standard to be met for the testimony of minor victims and witnesses of crime to be admitted into evidence via two-way closed-circuit television. It aligns, this language aligns with the precedent established in Maryland v. Craig. There was an amendment that came out of judiciary yesterday that had the age to 16 and retained the standard to more than de minimis, and it creates a more trauma-informed courtroom and I think serves to improve outcomes for victims and end of trials and without sacrificing our values in our justice system.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to, I voted, Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
apologize.
Senator Deeds.
I voted against this bill in committee, and I'll vote against it again, because I have other concerns. But above that, my information is while the House budget funds this, the Senate budget doesn't. So I think a financial contingency clause makes sense, and I would make that motion.
All right, a motion to have the financial contingency clause adopted. Is there a second to that motion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of adopting that provision, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No? No. All right. Ayes have it, and so that clause is adopted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question that's somewhat akin to that. And, you know, we had a claims bill before us a couple weeks ago, a gentleman named Michael Haas, who we wrote a check to him for $1.5 million in our budget, and he was convicted on testimony in just this type of case. And that was testimony under what would have been the old system. I mean, but it was found 26 years later that the testimony against him had been fabricated and was actually manipulated by the psychologist. Now, I'm not saying that's every case, but that was this case, and we had to write him a check for $1.5 million. I get very concerned about the right of confrontation of the Sixth Amendment, that people can testify from a closed-circuit TV, and the defendant does not have the right to confront them. I get very concerned about the defendant not being able to defend themselves really at all in that type of situation.
Mr. Chairman, may I raise a point of order, please?
I appreciate the point of order. Can I finish the question? The question is, are we going to keep writing checks for $1.5 million, which is a fiscal issue, Senator?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer that. Our current law does allow this remote testimony for children. The standard of trauma is severe, and it limits prosecution's desire to pursue that. It's a provision that's already allowed that I think a more trauma-informed courtroom would allow prosecutors to make this petition to the judge more frequently, but it is already allowed in our code.
All right, Senator Norman? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, and I don't mean to be an obstructionist, but it was my understanding the protocol we were following is that if a bill was heard, debated, and voted on in the court and the Committee of Original Jurisdiction, we were not going to engage in a debate here, and particularly on this evening.
Well, I think we need to be able to have some latitude to allow to people who have been involved in this issue, but we certainly don't need to have a running battle up here going back and forth. So We have the bill before us at this point. Anyone want to make a motion?
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report
amendment.
with the amendment, the clause that was adopted. We will, if there's no further discussion, we will vote on the board.
Ayes 13, noes 3.
Ayes 13, noes 3, the bill passes. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
all right, Delegate Ballard.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have House Bill 1892 that deals with abduction of a minor. We had a nice discussion last night in Judiciary about this, led by Senator McClellan, Deeds, Edwards, Senator Norman. So I think I can sum it up very succinctly. So the problem is, right now in Virginia, if a stranger steals a child, the maximum punishment is only 10 years. If you steal a car, the maximum punishment is 20 years. So if you steal a car, you get twice as much if you steal a child. Stated another way, stealing a child is the same punishment as forging a check. And so that's what this legislation is designed to do. And again, Senator McClellan led the way, and I appreciate it last night, adding some language in there that alleviates the concern that this does not impact those parental kidnapping cases. This is strictly abduction, stranger abduction of a minor child. And so certainly willing to take questions, but it's a pretty straightforward bill.
All right, does anyone have any questions of the patron? All right, we have a motion to report and a second to that motion. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
The bill is reported. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Yes. Delegate Robinson.
Good afternoon. So this is HB 2200. This was the original BPOL tax reduction bill. What was only going to apply to doctors' offices who treated their patients in office with very, very expensive anti-cancer drugs. And it would only have applied to, their BPOL deduction would have only applied to patients whose treatment was being paid for by Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE, because the drugs are costing the doctors a whole lot more than the reimbursement that they're getting. So it was a relief for the doctors. After further discussion, there is a substitute to the bill, because it's our understanding that this is already permissive. Localities can already make adjustments to their BPOL tax for certain things. But they can choose to do this. Some of our local localities actually do this. Henrico being one of the counties who came and talked to me for having exceptions. So the substitute is to establish a work group to look at the broader issue around caring for these cancer patients, and still dealing with these government payers. And the work group would be made up of stakeholders which would include the Medical College of Virginia, Medical Society of Virginia, the Virginia Association of Hematologists and Oncologists, Virginia Association of Counties, and the Virginia Municipal League. And then this work group would then submit a report back. And they would also look at, to analyze not just the cost, but to review the current reimbursements, the operations, tax challenges that they also face.
Mr. Chair, my understanding is there's a committee sub, and I'm not sure how that, I think it's similar, but I don't know, I'm not sure what differences there are.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Deeds, the committee substitute will remove the body of the bill, so no changes to the code are being made. It would retain the work group that Delegate Robinson described, but would remove the provisions related to analyzing tax challenges and tax administration. But otherwise, it would retain the same language as her substitute with the work group.
All right. Does anyone know what the difference is between the two potential substitutes?
One, the committee substitute is just the work group. Her substitute would retain the deduction changes to the license taxes in the code. And would also have the work
Committee
group.
substitute.
Yeah.
You're happy with that?
The committee
That-
substitute,
all
just
right.
with the work group, absolutely.
I'd move the committee substitute.
All right, we have a motion to adopt the committee substitute. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. No. It's just, yeah. Yeah. All in favor of the adopting the substitute before us, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right, the substitute's adopted.
Move to report as amended.
All right. Is there a second? Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to report as amended.
Here's to you, Dr. Robinson.
All right. Okay. All right, we will vote on the board now. Yep. All right.
Thank you very, very much.
I-16, no,
I-16,
zero.
yeah, no's, zero. It's reported with the substitute.
Great, thank you.
All right, Delegate Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two bills in here, and I just came from committee, so I don't even know what they are.
That's right. Do you know who we are? So
You have them? The one is our workforce bill, and I think the secretary needs a new pair of shoes because he has gone to more offices in the Senate to try and get everybody on board and get amendments done to the bill. So we just passed Senator Ruff's bill out of Commerce and Energy with the same version you passed out of General Laws.
Right.
So that's where we're at with that.
Mr. Chair,
Do
Delegate
you need me to
Byron.
explain it?
Mr. Chair, Delegate Byron, House Bill 2195 is the Workforce Development Bill, and there were changes discussed with the Secretary today, but I would let our attorney discuss that.
Mr. Chairman, there is a preliminary draft posted online that is subject to change. This was adopted in concept right before this meeting, so we're still getting the exact language worked out, so it may be moved in places. But on the online offered version, the changes are on lines 132 through 134. This is just taking language from the Office of Business Outreach that was in the version as it left this committee from the Senate bill, and adding it to the powers and duties of the department. Line 216, give me a moment. Again, adding in language that was in 217, excuse me, adding language that was in the Senate bill related to SHEV, certifications, certificates, and degrees. Line 228, and it removes the innovative internship program and fund, and then also includes an enactment clause that allows the Secretaries of Finance and Labor to approve disbursements of the fund before they are used.
Actually, it removes the innovative internship fund, and they're supposed to put language in about the collaboration.
And was this in Ruff's bill that we did today?
No, this is what
Okay.
they're talking about. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I believe the language removes the innovative internship fund and is supposed to put language in about the collaboration and working together, which we are still working on.
Yes, sir, Mr. Secretary, and that would go under the powers and duties of the new department.
Right. All right. Delegate Byron, you want to respond in any way, or?
At this point, there's been so many changes to that bill, I'm letting the secretary tell me yes or no, and we are just trying to make sure we do everything we can to get it across the finish line and have a good bill that we can get moving on to make these changes.
And we will continue to work with staff just to work out the final language details, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anyone want to make a motion to adopt the substitute?
Move to adopt the substitute.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, the substitute is now before us. And,
Second.
yep.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman?
yes.
I had a question.
Yes, Senator Evan.
And I don't know if it's for the patron or for the secretary about where does it stand now in terms of internship in the bill? There was a concern yesterday in general laws, and you told me, I think, that that was being addressed.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly what we're talking about, is the
Okay.
VTOP program, the Virginia Innovative Internship Program. And we're working out some of the details that would leave the Innovative Internship Program at Chev, but would create a situation to where the new workforce agency would be in a position to work with Chev to help drive the program and to help expand it and work with businesses to push them out to businesses.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All right. If there's not, then anyone want to make a motion?
Report.
Second. All right. We have a motion to report as amended with the substitute. And it's a second. And if there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
Ayes 15, no 0, 1 abstention.
All right. The motion passes, so you're reported with the substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The
Thank
other
you.
one was House Bill 1885, which you are familiar with being on the Attorney General's task force, and this is our organized retail theft bill. Came out of courts. They made a amendment to that and increased the threshold to 5,000. I believe that was Senator Peterson, correct?
Yeah.
And I think that was the only change that they made over there.
That was my understanding, that was the only change that was adopted, so. All right, so we have the bill as reported from Judiciary.
Move be reported.
And the motion has been made to report the bill. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, then if there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The
Thank
bill
you
is
very
reported.
much.
Thank you, yes. All right, next is Delegate Bulova.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is House Bill 1636. It was brought at the request of the Secretary of Education. I do have the Deputy Secretary here in case you all have any specific questions. What the bill does, it puts back in place penalties that were inadvertently removed for willfully operating a daycare facility without a license where the child in that daycare facility is seriously injured or died. Just some really quick history. Back in 2020, we consolidated our early childhood education programs and took them from the Department of Social Services, put them in the Department of Education. Chairwoman Howell, that was our bill that we went ahead and did together. Up until that point, this section of the code that we're dealing with here, dealing with child abuse and neglect, did include places like child daycare centers. However, when we consolidated that program, this section of the code was inadvertently narrowed by not including a reference to the Department of Education in Title 22.1. And so as a result, the penalty only applied to those facilities that were left in social services, so child placing agencies, children's residential facilities, and independent foster homes. All this bill does is fix that oversight by adding the appropriate reference to Title 22.1 and making sure that we're recapturing child daycare programs into this area of the code.
All right, are there any questions of the patron?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Eben.
I don't know if it's for the patron or for the Deputy Secretary. What is the penalty now for operating, or after this passes, operating a child day program or family day system when it does not cause or permit serious injury to a child? If someone just doesn't get a license, is there a penalty for that?
Great question. I don't know that, but I bet the Deputy Secretary does.
Okay.
Thank you. For the record, Mackenzie Snow, Deputy Secretary of Education. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Senator, for the question. This is specifically in reference to a scenario in which a child had experienced a serious injury to their life or to the health of the child, for an issue in which a child day center, which is a day center in which you are serving more than 12 children who are unrelated to you, is operating continuously without a license. The Department of Education will notify that child day center in writing reporting multiple times, and then they will receive an injunction. Then they would be referred to the Commonwealth's attorney, which would likely again notify them in writing and likely visit them. So there are multiple steps to resolve a failure to become licensed, but they are not criminal and they are not referenced in this bill.
Mr. Chairman, then basically it's a, you get shut down if you don't cause an injury, but if you cause an injury or a death, then there's a criminal penalty.
And what I described are the multiple steps that would be taken to help a child day center obtain a license.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, any further questions of the patron? All right. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move the report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Krizek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two bills. If you don't mind, we could start with House Bill 1987.
All right.
All right, what this is,
Wait, we
Sorry.
already did 1987.
oh, you did? Okay. How did it do? Good, good. That's great. Thank you very much. So this, then it's House Joint Resolution 548, which would establish a joint subcommittee of the Senate Committee on General Laws and Technology, the Senate Committee on Finance and Appropriations, the House Committee on General Laws, and the House Committee on Appropriations to study the feasibility of establishing the Virginia Gaming Commission to regulate and oversee all forms of gaming in the Commonwealth. So it's a bicameral, bipartisan effort to look into whether we need to establish a single state gaming agency. It's really in reaction to what the JLARC study that came out in October.
Right. All right, are there any questions of the patron?
I have a motion.
Yes.
I move that we report.
Second. All right, we have a motion to report. Is there a second? Second. All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the board. So.
Ayes 16, no 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Moorfield.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. We really need proxies in the House. No, back before you again this evening. You've already heard extensive testimony on this bill,
Right.
House Bill 2431, which would make improvements to the education tax scholarship tax credit program. You heard testimony from Senator Stosh. Senator Stosh could not be here this evening. But simply put, the purpose of this bill is to help raise children in public schools out of poverty. And so I can get into the details of the bill again, but what this bill will simply do is give charitable organizations the opportunity to go into contract with public schools and help children formulate financial plans for when they graduate from high school and hopefully go on to college.
All right.
And may I also add, I believe there is some concern that the governor may make amendments to this. You have my word that if he does so, my colleagues, Republican and Democrat colleagues in the House, will not support those amendments.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think we've made a policy decision on this issue with respect to Senate Bill 1506, and so I would respectfully move that we PBI the bill.
All right, it's a motion to pass it by indefinitely.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Senator Hanger.
Substitute motion, I'd like to speak to that just briefly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was expressed, I think there were two elements. I think the delegate has addressed the one about concern that it might be hijacked, and he's given assurances that effort, if it came about, would not be supported. The second is I think there's confusion on this program. This program has been in existence for some time, and Senator Stosh's program that was shared with it, GRASP, is a good example of how these monies are being used to provide coaches in individual schools. And I'm aware of it, in my district, or even over in Highland County, where individuals have been coached and led to a direction where they end up furthering their higher education, where their family has not done that before, where that's just not the expectation that they could do that type of thing. So I would hope that we report it, and certainly I support the substitute motion now to report the bill.
Second. All right. There's a motion, substitute motion, and a second to report the bill. Unless there's any further discussion, we will vote now.
Senator Ruff from Warner. Ayes 7, noes 8.
Ayes 7, noes 8. The report fails.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
No. Yeah. All right, next is Delegate Ferris. Ferris, he must not be here. Delegate Les Adams. Oh. Huh?
I don't want to go in front of the delegate. You've got someone from the administration that can handle affairs.
Okay.
When the time's right.
All right, Les, you come up first, and then we'll deal with Delegate Ferris's bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 2013 that was referred by the Senate Committee on the Judiciary. This is a bill to make certain amendments to the law governing probation violations and violations regarding terms of suspended sentences in the circuit court. This follows action from the General Assembly in the last term, which made very significant changes. This does not reverse all of that. It was really patterned after what was hoping to be a compromise legislation. I understand there's still maybe an effort to work through some of that in committee. There was an indeterminate fiscal concern expressed in the fiscal statement with the bill as introduced, and I think that's what prompted the letter indicating it needed to be referred here. Right. But with the Senate amendments, I do not believe there's any fiscal implication.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And I apologize. I was out of the room yesterday when most of the discussion took place. The reenactment clause was put on in the Senate Judiciary Committee.
I do not believe there was a reenactment clause. I think it was just there was a deletion. Essentially, most of the bill was amended to be removed, except the first part, which deals with the limitations on the amount of time that a judge could impose on a violation. And so my hope would be is that that if this bill were to be able to move forward, that we could go into conference and hopefully come up with a compromise. And if there is no compromise to be had, then so be it. But my hope would be that we could continue to move forward.
All right, staff.
Mr. Chairman, the Senate substitute does include a reenactment clause.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I missed that part.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Senator Edwards.
I think, is this the one that hasn't
ex post facto law. After you give a sentence, you then increase it later on, you increase probation. You can't do that. Okay. Did it do that?
Oh, no, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Senator
it-
Edwards, no, I do not believe it does that. What it does is it actually limits the amount of time. I think previously you could say that, that the court could impose any amount of time that had been suspended. I think this limits it to, for a felony offense, it limits it up for up to 2 years. And a class one, and basically it's 2 years for any felony or class one or class two misdemeanor.
But, Mr. Chairman, but this is not the situation where the sentence has been imposed, case is over, and then later they want to, after some period of time, they want to extend the probation later. Doesn't do that?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I do not believe so. I mean, they leave that additional amount of time out there in the expectation that a case can be resuspended after a violation and it's continued on.
Senator Marston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for a Class 2 misdemeanor, you could be on probation 4 times longer than you could get a 6-month sentence.
That is a correct way, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Senator, I think that, not that, but as I understand it, I don't think that's a new part of the way this law is being applied. In other words,
Well, let me pose it this way. Can you, in the adult system, can you be placed on probation on a Class 1 misdemeanor for 2 years? Is that current law, or is that being proposed here?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that is allowed now. I think the law is silent on it. But I could be wrong. I defer to counsel if I have something different, but that wasn't really part of our discussion on this.
Mr. Chair, my understanding from the Judiciary Council is that currently it's limited to the statutory maximum period for which the defendant might be sentenced, and that's either 6 months or 1 year for a Class 1 and Class 2 misdemeanor respectively, so that this would increase the amount of time that you could be placed on probation if you have a suspended sentence from either 6 months or 1 year up to 2 years.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Yates.
That's certainly my understanding of the law, and my guess is that's why the reenactment clause was put on the bill. As I said, I wasn't in the room the whole time.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Marston.
You know, if there's a reenactment clause here and we can, get some of this cleared out, but generally speaking, I think it's just kind of not good public policy to have, your maximum sentence of confinement is 1 year, but your probation is 2. I get the fact that, sometimes, at least in the past, I know in the juvenile system, people can be placed on indefinite, probation or whatever. But I guess with the reenactment clause, we'd have an opportunity to, to look at this further. But that is a little concerning for me.
Mr. Chairman, if I can answer the senator, I will certainly come to a definite answer about why that was put in here this way and what the thinking was on that.
All right, there's a motion to report. Is there a second? Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
It's got a reenactment on it.
Ayes 10, no 6.
Ayes 10, no 6, the bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we'll go back to Delegate Harris.
She did not require.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Howell and Senator Lucas and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. House Bill 2151 deals with the state parks. Right now, if a state park has to, every 10 years, they have to draw up a master plan.
Right.
But today, with much is going on and everything that's rolling around in these state parks and making them more accessible to everybody, the limits that master plan sets on them is pretty short to accommodate a 10-year plan. And my bill just allows them to do more within that time frame.
Chairman,
Senator Hanger.
no fiscal impact. It also changes the amount that would trigger a master plan change from 500,000 to 2 million. So I move to be reported.
Is that the main thrust, Mr. Chair? Is that the main thrust of the bill?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
Senator. That's the main thing is, 500,000 will hardly pour a good concrete parking lot with a little.
Mr. Chairman, I would say, not to belabor the point, that Senator Deeds and I put that 500,000 in there in 1998, so it's probably time for a change.
I get confused when I come in here because I got friends and they're here and they're there and they're moving around. What in the world's going on here? Y'all got them moved around here.
All right, are there any further questions of the patron? All right, does anyone want to make a motion?
Move to report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to report and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I have a question? Why y'all put baby in the corner over there?
Ayes 16, no 0.
All right, thank you. That bill is reported. Okay, Delegate Campbell.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, how are you tonight? Which bill? I've got 3. Doesn't make a difference.
Pick which one to start with.
Okay, let's start with House Bill 1550, which I think is the only one I've got that actually has a stated fiscal impact. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, what this bill will do, and judiciary, the members of you that are on judiciary heard this at length last night, but this will change the law. Currently, licensed public school teachers they have a vested property right in their continued employment. And under current law, that property right cannot be deprived of them without an opportunity to be heard, a hearing on the matter. And they're subject to, right now, administrative investigations for child abuse and neglect, and DSS ordinarily conducts those investigations. And right now, under Virginia law, the only remedy they have is a procedure through the Administrative Process Act. And the problem we've got is that the hearing in front of the hearing officer has limitations on the teacher's ability to be able to call witnesses. That's in the discretion of the hearing officer whether or not the department is actually required to produce the witnesses live and in color for cross-examination. Quite frequently, reports compiled by investigators are introduced into evidence despite the fact that it might otherwise violate.
Mr. Chair, we heard all this evidence yesterday, and there's a substantial due process reason for this bill, and it's our responsibility in this committee to look at the fiscal impact. This is primarily a local fiscal impact.
That's correct.
And I'd move to report the bill.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr.
Next.
Chair. Yeah, House Bill 1757.
With House Bill 1757, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that there's no fiscal impact, and that staff, somebody was looking at this bill incorrectly. It doesn't have any fiscal impact. I'd move to report the bill.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote now.
Ayes 16, no 0.
All right, that bill is reported. You got, I think, one more, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2450.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That was one of the identical bills that we dealt with earlier. So it's already
Okay.
reported.
2450.
We've already passed.
2450 was reported.
Then I am finished. Thank you. Mr. Chair,
right.
you all have a good night.
Okay, you too, so. Is Delegate Durant here? Aha, there you are.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 2495 would create a middle school mathematics innovation zone program to be for the purpose of assisting school divisions to implement competency-based and evidence-based mathematics learning models for students enrolled in grades 6, 7, 8. This program would have an emphasis on school divisions based on SOL scores, rural localities, and those who are most in need. This is really born, Mr. Chair, from identifying we know that students have experienced gaps in their learning, and math is so cumulative that they really are going to need additional support. And as a former school teacher, I know that there's concern for those families who aren't able to access outside resources. And so this kind of program really identifies the strands in the curriculum where their students may have not grasped a concept, and they're able to really achieve mastery in it so that it's not cumulative and that will get into trouble before they get into high school. And we know with algebra that this is a gatekeeper for advanced courses, for science, more science-based and computer languages. So this is really critical to come in and identify those students who are really in need of support. The beauty of it, as Senator Hashmi said in committee, is twofold, is that we know that this is working, collecting this kind of data with the community colleges, and it also meets students where they are. So not only those who are experiencing gaps and maybe a little bit behind, but it also allows students to be able to accelerate if they are. So it just meets them where they are.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? Senator Howell.
I don't, I guess I just don't get what this program is. Is it a curriculum that's provided by somebody?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Senator. I agree. It's a little bit hard to understand how these programs work just from the language. They come in with assessment tools.
I'm sorry, who comes in?
So when you create this program, there's a couple of levels so that you've got the technical advisors that come in and are there to support the school system to get these tools, assessment, and the modules in place. And then there's a second component to it, which is the model providers that would come into the schools that are in support. There's a couple of different ways that these can roll out. There's a few different models that we've seen around the country that have been successfully rolled out.
I'm sorry, I'm still not getting it.
That's okay.
Are these vendors of some kind that come in with the programs?
Yeah, so this would be a program that the schools could be a competitive grant program that if they wanted to opt into it and participate in this program. And there are different vendors out here and throughout the country that do this competency-based and evidence-based type programs to come in and support the school system. So it doesn't replace the curriculum. It augments for students who are coming in and needing additional supports. So it creates an assessment tool where it identifies the specific strands that students did not understand. So as a former educator, I know that when students review class, sometimes we just had to move on, and maybe a student did not understand how to divide by fractions. So these assessment tools would identify where the gaps are, and then they would continue to work on that mastery. That's where the technical providers come in and get those programs in place, and then the model providers are come in to help with the teacher support so that make sure they understand how to do the program properly and offer that sort of assistance in the classroom.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator McClellan.
Thank you. Delegate Durant, as I understand, this is funded through a portion of the funds that were set aside for the lab schools, is that correct?
I believe, yes, in the fiscal impact there is, that was targeted for that in the House budget.
Is this a lab school?
No, ma'am. Mm-mm. No, this would be a competitive grant program that schools would apply for with preference. Department of Education would give for schools based on SOL scores, rural localities, and those who are just most in need. I felt it was pretty important that the schools would be opting into it. This is not something that would be mandated down to them. For example, there's a city of Fredericksburg is one of the schools in my locality that is performing at the bottom, and they're very interested in coming and having these kind of support. So it would be optional for the schools to be able to apply for it.
So, follow up, Ms. Chair.
Yes.
So would the school apply to the Department of Education for a grant? Or would the school apply to the Department of Education to be designated as a particular school subject to the Department of Education's supervision?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think they're probably yes and yes, that they would be applied to participate in this type of program. They're still subject to, it is managed by the Department of Education and supervised by them. Still, all of the parameters are in place with Department in terms of credentialing and, SOLs criteria, et cetera.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Well, I have one last question, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, and this is for staff. So as I understand it, the House budget designated $7 million of the College Partnership Lab School Fund for this, but in the Senate budget, there's only $5 million in that fund. So there's a gap.
Senator Barker, Senator McClellan, that is correct. The Senate budget reduced the lab school funding by $145 million, which would leave $5 million in the fund for the planning grants that are being issued now by DOE. And the House budget designated $7 million out of the $150 million provided for lab schools in their budget.
So does this need the clause?
All right, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would the Department of Education be choosing these programs based on an RFI process or an RFP?
An RFP process.
A competitive
Yes.
process that would then, once a school is selected, then that is the vendor that would come to that school?
Mr. Chair, Senator, I believe that there would be an RFP process, and the schools would be applying it through competitive grant programs. So the model provider and the technical providers, if I'm not mistaken, could be separate vendors, but this is all supervised by the Department of Education. So they as they came through in the subcommittees, both in the House and Senate side.
Mr. Chairman, but on a competitive basis?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Well, what I'm still struggling with is I haven't seen any analysis that any of this is of any value, and yet the House is designating $7 million to it. It just strikes me as really premature. And I'm not at all sure whether or not one of these these innovation zone programs is in any way any better than what our own Department of Education is producing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So just to touch on some of those concerns, we have seen a lot of success in this rolled out. This is not something that would be new. There are other states that have rolled out these innovation zones in the classrooms. So they're augmenting exactly what we're doing, with our curriculum. There are different models, to different vendors, but the data is what's key. And this is why I look so closely at this one, is that we're able to capture data. And my own child is going through a very similar program right now, so I can speak from personal experience as well, is that when you're cutting out the mystery as a parent, as an educator, and as a student of where those gaps are, then they can start to target it, and they get to identify where am I in this curriculum and where do I need to go. The ones I worry about the most are those that got left behind in the classroom, and the parents come and they say, maybe we're able to afford to bring in some extra resources and get some extra tutoring. There's still a lot of mystery, and these kind of programs identify those specific strands in the curriculum where students can look and say, I didn't understand that concept, and they can scaffold their way up at their own pace and meet the students where they are. It takes a lot of the mystery out, and I can tell from personal experience, it also takes a lot of the anxiety away from math too.
Okay. All right, any other questions of the patron? All right, we're open for a motion.
Substitute motion,
All right,
PBI.
Second.
all right, we have a motion and then a substitute motion to pass by indefinitely, and that motion has been seconded. If there's no further discussion, we will vote on the motion to pass by indefinitely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ayes 11, noes 5.
All right, ayes 11, noes 5, the bill is passed by indefinitely. Delegate Marshall.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members. House Bill 1769 is an MEI cleanup bill. Last year, Senate Finance, your committee, continued House Bill 458 last session from Delegate Bolivar. And during that meeting, Chair Lady Howell requested that the Money Committee staffs work together on a bill, and that's what we have before you today.
Yeah.
So House Bill 1769 reflects the work in the off-season for the cleanup sections of the MEI code. The changes are really focused on ensuring high-dollar economic development deals, complex projects come before the commission. Right now, projects come before the commission if there is a combined $10 million in total grants, tax credits, or tax exemptions from any source included in the deal. This bill removes those grants and tax credits and incentives employees get by right and aren't relevant on the approval of an economic development package. This bill increases the current threshold for an in-state relocation project from $250,000 to $2.5 million. Since 2017, there have been 9 in-state projects. This bill also requires projects to come before MEI if there is a large cash upfront payment that is over $3.5 million. Right now, cash upfront has to be $10 million, so we lowered that threshold. All custom performance grants are still required to be reviewed by MEI. There are some advantages, administrative changes to the bill, and they had some challenges with the MEI being billed very late in the legislative process. So now MEI bills have to be drafted and sent to on the system by December the 15th. So that's the bill.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right, we have a motion to report and a second on that motion. If there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
Ayes 16, noes 0.
Ayes 16, no zeros, 0. Your bill is reported, so.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Chair, Fowler? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have a bill here. Delegate Fowler is sick and went home, and I've got his bill. It's simple if we just conform it to Senator Reed's bill, and I would so move.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to conform to Senator Reed's bill.
And this concerns a gaming regulatory fund, establishing it. And we had changed Senator Reed's bill, narrowed it down, and reported it with the substitutes. So if we conform this, then we will have taken the same action.
All right.
Have we already conformed?
Yeah. No, I think we did. He made a motion to conform. And is there a second on the motion?
I move the report is conformed.
Right, we've not adopted we've not adopted the conforming substitute. So the motion has been offered to conform to Senator Reed's bill. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that is before us. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion to report and a second. And if there's no further discussion, we will vote now.
Ayes 16, no zero.
Aye 16, no zero. Oh, that's reported with the substitute. And that takes care of everything, and we are done, so. Yeah, that's right.